What's going on, everybody? This is a video I thought I would make that'd be kind of cool. This is going to be all the cars that I've owned. I'm currently 19, starting at, of course, 16 when I started driving. I was one of those people that was eager to start driving right away and get my first car. I kind of have like a little list here of all the cars that I've owned. I'm on about my sixth car, which is kind of not by choice, but just how things have worked out for me. So let's just get right into it. Starting off, first car that I've got was a car that my grandma actually drove. Then it pretty much ended up getting parked in a garage for a while until I started driving. There was a lot of maintenance that was put into it, and that car was my 2005 Buick Lesabre. It was kind of like a gold color with a light interior. One of the most comfortable cars that I've driven, just because of the way the seats were and the way it drove. It was very just like airy and light. Had like the bench seat that I remember in the front, which is really cool. I put a aftermarket radio in it with CarPlay. That was kind of the first thing I did, and then spray painted the grill black on it, little stuff like that. First car, just wanted to do little stuff, whatever, just learning. That was pretty much October when I started driving, got my license. This is also the time that I got my first job. I was at Walmart. Kind of got lucky actually with how much I was getting paid there. That's a first job. That car had the 3800 series. That was a 3.8 V6, which is one of Chevy's best motors as far as reliability. Those cars are known to go for a long time. Actually, the only issue that I had on it was the transmission would randomly jerk, kind of like slip almost. I had about 155,000 miles on it when I was driving it. Also, the gas gauge was broken. It was just one of those things where it's like, it's not worth it to fix. So I was constantly tracking, the trip, how many miles I would get. So I'd have to guess. I did get stranded one time. I kind of miscalculated, so that kind of sucked. But anyway, that car was nothing super like fun to drive. It was just comfortable, front wheel drive, just kind of a con, and I was on some pretty cheap tires, so that wasn't too fun. But at the time, really good first car for what it was. Basically, I kind of at a certain point decided I wanted something a little bit more fun, all-wheel drive. I wanted to try out. Again, this is kind of before I really got into cars, so I drove that from October to February. This was 2021, 2022. I think it was 2021. Ended up just saving up, grinding, save it up to money, sold that car to a friend who actually had it, and not too long after the trans did go out, I believe. It was about a year though, so it was a little further out. It was just one of those things where it just happened. He knew about it though when he bought the car. It was like $3,500 I sold it for, and then I used that money to get my next car, which was my 2013 G37x. That was kind of like a grayish brown color, which actually looked pretty nice in my opinion. Of course, you got the black interior. Bought the car with around 160k miles on it, which is a lot, of course, for one of those cars. That was February that I bought that car. Those have the 3.7 VHR, which are one of Nissan's best motors. That community definitely gets a bad rap, for kind of a good reason. I bought that car. It had a muffler and resonator delete. It was a rebuilt title. Unfortunately, actually, I was looking at a couple took one to get inspected, and they said it was about at least $2,000 worth of repairs that it needed. So that's very important. Looking at a car, even if it's at a dealership, get a second opinion on it before you end up buying it, so you don't get yourself in a bad situation. But the one that I bought was probably one of the cheapest ones on the market at the time, just because, you know, paid cash for it. Everything was pretty good on it, aside from minor things, which is all right for me. I mean, it was my first car that I bought, but my second car. So basically, had that car February through November, so a decent amount of time. What was it, 6 months or something like that. I ended up doing test pipes on it. So it was a full straight pipe. You can imagine how that sounded. I have some older videos of it still posted up. But it was quick. Those cars aren't fast, but they're quick. Again, they kind of get a bad rap, but you do get all-wheel drive at least, and actually a pretty good luxury for what the price is on a 2013. At the end of the day, it's a Nissan, but I did enjoy the car. I had some intakes from Mount intakes on it. You know, did a little bit of exterior stuff, nothing too major or crazy. But that was when I started into cars a little bit more. For the most part, that was a pretty reliable car. I had, you know, little issues here and there. The power steering pump went out, and I had a coolant leak here or there, but I remember it never burned any oil. I really had major issues where I was out of the cars, so that kind of led me to getting cars a little bit. But ultimately, I decided to sell it. It got up to like 172K miles, I think, when I sold the car. So it was definitely getting up there. I decided I want to try to go a little bit different route. That was kind of the time that I was like, oh, I'm kind of interested in hatchbacks. But I sold that car, I think a little bit more than I bought it for. I mean, I did sell it being in pretty good condition. I always take care of my cars. Maintenance comes first before, you know, messing with anything, so that's pretty important. I sold that car, then I was driving around a beater car, which was my 2009 Vibe, and that was, of course, a hatchback, all-wheel drive, the 2AZ FE, the 2.4 four-cylinder. Got that in December. Nothing special at all. It didn't even have heated seats or anything like that, so it definitely was kind of a downgrade, in my opinion. But it was a beater car. The subframe on it was rusted out pretty bad. It burned a insane amount of oil, like adding, you know, a couple quarts per month. And that's just because the piston ring assembly, I believe it was, that was from manufacturer defect. So it's kind of engine out job. I did little stuff on it, like valve cover and whatnot. Drove that around, saved up some money. That car didn't really give me any big issues. I remember two things happened to me were the I guess you would call it the brake shield, the rotor shield, broke and fell off while I was driving, and I heard like a super loud noise. I was like, what is going on? But that wasn't too major. And the muffler actually rusted and fell off while I was driving as well. So it gave itself a muffler delete in a sense. And I didn't end up fixing that. I actually just sold it, but I was driving that car in December, and I was working, saving up. I wanted a GTI really bad, just because turbo, hatchback, tunable, you know, obviously those are the EA 888. After saving up, driving the Vibe for a little bit, which was, you know, pretty decent on gas. So saved up, bought the GTI in July. This was another rebuild title car. Same thing with the Infiniti. I was able to find the information on why it was actually rebuilt. The front end and the back end were both damaged, but not to the frame. So I actually bought the car knowing that it wasn't perfect condition. Again, it was one of the cheaper cars on the market. It already was stage 2, I guess you'd call it, with the intake and downpipe, and it was lowered as well. Had the Cobb stratified tune on it. So that was my first tune car, my first turbo car as well. And of course I had the DSG, which I really enjoyed. I liked the plaid seats, everything about it I thought was pretty cool. At least, for a still kind of introductory, sportier car. But I got the car in July. I was still had the Vibe. So basically, took the whole front end off the GTI, did a bunch of maintenance, the trans and fixing any leaks there was. The previous owner tried to put a, metal, steel, oil pan, whatever, but it wasn't quite fit on correctly. So you can imagine other things weren't the best on it. It had a dent in the rear quarter panel and also the bumper and the trunk. So all in all, that kind of went into why it was totaled out and rebuilt. But for the most part, it was still decent for what it was. At that time, I was going to college, going away, so I figured that I didn't need the nicest car, but still something I can enjoy and not too high as far as cost of ownership. So I got the car in July, did a bunch of work on it. Water pump went out on me. Fixed that. I had the whole front end off a couple times, a new condenser and a couple other things. But I finally started driving that car in October. Like I said, I got it in July. Then I sold the Vibe. I think it was kind of around December or January. It was just kind of sitting. Finally sold that car. We had the GTI until December. I remember getting the first pretty big snow and trying to drive the GTI, and it was rough. I remember the back end was kicking out on a front wheel drive car. Of course, it was lowered and tuned, so putting a lot of power down. But it was very quick. It was fun, especially for rolls. Once I got everything pretty much fixed up, I didn't really have any issues. It was a very fun car, very practical, pretty good for the price. Golf Rs were still very expensive compared to the GTI, so it's just really the difference in the internals and the the all-wheel drive with the Haldex. So I had that car. I had to put a new downpipe on it because the downpipe cracked, and the turbo inlet, I didn't tune it any differently. It was just maintenance stuff here and there. I did enjoy the car. I decided I wanted something all-wheel drive. I did like the hatchback, but I ended up going back to a sedan, and that led me to my 2014 S4, which is the first car that I financed. Of course, it was all on my own, no cosign or anything like that. So I basically actually ended up selling the GTI very close to the dealer. I sold it privately. If you can sell your car privately, you're going to get more money. That can kind of be a pain though. So I sold the GTI, and that same day went to the dealer, got the S4. The GTI I think I sold with maybe 150 something thousand miles on it. I bought it with 140. Again, a lot of my cars higher mileage, which I don't mind too much. I can do most of the maintenance and repairs on my own. Some things are kind of out of my hands, of course. The larger things, or you need special equipment, especially for these German cars. The diagnostics and whatnot can be a little bit difficult. But I got the S4, 130k miles on it. It was a really nice spec, white. Of course, you got the Alcantara black interior too, the Bang & Olufsen, and the sport diff, which I was specifically looking for. Those, of course, have the 3.0T, the supercharged. I feel like those are getting very popular at the moment for a good reason, because they're good value. You get Quattro and the supercharged V6 in them, and the DSG. It's a fun combo. Made sure to get a 2014. They fixed a couple issues, especially with the DSG. That was a big one. So I got the car in December. Just basically took all the money from the GTI and used it as a down payment. Of course, it was my first car being financed, so my credit wasn't bad or good. It was just nothing really there. So I didn't quite get the best, and I wasn't really the most educated going into that decision. But I couldn't get a cosign, so that was all on my own. I ended up getting that car. I drove off the lot, and not too long after, low oil, unfortunately. So I didn't look into the issues as much as I should have. I ended up doing the PCV, and you have to do all the gaskets, take the supercharger out. I have videos on that too. The carbon cleaning. It's kind of a big job. The water pump and the brakes and rotors were done like right before I bought it. I did get to see the Carfax. I should have had it inspected though to really see. I did the valve cover gaskets too. The big one on those is the cats going out. So actually, a couple months later, I ended up buying some test pipes. I actually didn't put them on because kind of throughout me owning that car, just because, like I said, the finance decision that I made and insurance was pretty high, and I just decided that I wanted to kind of go a different route. For me, Audis seem to have kind of more frequent issues, and then that led me to what I have now, my Benz, which seems like Benz have less frequent, but when they do, they're more expensive. That's just my experience and opinion though. German cars will have their issues. I think they're very rewarding. The feeling of a German car to me is just so different than anything else. The way it drives and the design, and they're always just ahead of their time. But that can also mean issues. So I had that car, the S4, from December till April, and that's when I got my 2014 E550 V8 twin turbo. First V8 I had, twin turbo, or bi-turbo as they call it, meaning that there's two equal sized turbos. Of course, my car, they're mounted on the exhaust manifold, not top mount, with the M278. And I got the car in April, and I'm currently still driving it. So it's been about 6 months. My ownership has been very enjoyable. I will say that it's not as maybe like light and nimble as the S4. Of course, the S4 being supercharged, it was amazing off digs and instant power. And with the DSG, it was a lot of fun, honestly. I wanted something to be something a little bit different. Like I said, the S4s are kind of getting more popular, so for a good reason, of course. So I bought the E550. Very rare car to find. There's not really that much that were made or on the market. I want a newer one because supposedly some things are fixed on them. Again, German cars all have their certain issues. Do your research as best as possible. Try to get the car inspected. Look into insurance costs, gas costs, maintenance, common issues. Just all that in total before buying the car. Essentially sold the S4, or traded it in, I should say, to it was a very small dealer that I bought it from. That the E550 had about 160k miles on it, which again is high, but the maintenance on it was really good. It was a really clean car. It didn't even have many owners on it. I think it was 1 or 2 owners, so someone drove it and maintenance it pretty good, which is it's always good to see in a car. Didn't have any accidents or anything like that on it, so it was a really good spec. Pretty hard to find with all that I had. I think I'm just missing the heated rear seats, maybe like 1 or 2 other things, but not much. So I'm currently driving that right now. Very fun. Of course, V8 twin turbo. It's hard to go away from V8s once you get a V8. It's because of the sound and the feeling and the power. It's great. I figure all these brands are moving to smaller displacement so I might as well get a V8 while I can. And honestly, it's not like it's too bad gas-wise or insurance-wise or anything like that. It's actually pretty manageable and reasonable. So basically, I've owned NA V6, NA 4-cylinder, turbo 4-cylinder, supercharged 6-cylinder, and now twin turbo 8-cylinder. So a little bit of everything. Own dual clutches, just standard automatics. Some better than others. I do like dual clutches. Of course, the AMGs have those, which hopefully one day that's where I'll be. That's a pretty big step up. But I've learned a lot from starting off, working on my own cars, learned more and more and more. I like to work on my own cars when I can. Definitely maintenance and mods afterwards. It's very important to do. Do your research before buying a car. Definitely, I wish I did things a little bit differently, but that led me to where I am today. This was, of course, over a couple of years. I started driving at 16, as soon as I could. Now I'm 19. So hopefully the next car will be probably an AMG, maybe a RS. I'm still between Audi and Mercedes. I just like them both a lot. I can't really decide on one or the other. Probably something with of course, twin turbo V8. Audi's got their 4.0 twin turbo V8, and same thing with Mercedes. I think they make some great cars. BMW, I just never quite, never really got into, never was a huge fan, but they have some nice cars still, of course. But I do like my German cars just the best. There is kind of a trade-off with expense. If you want to drive something that's going to give you no issues and be cheap, but it's just not going to be that nice or exciting to drive, then go with something probably Japanese, which of course I have driven. So that's kind of been my experience. If you have any questions or comments, or you want to share your experiences with any cars, let me know. I definitely think, in my opinion, I've owned some pretty popular motors for each of those brands. It just ended up how my ownership went. All those motors are usually known for being super reliable, or one of the brand's popular motors for tuning or whatnot. I have videos on a lot of those cars previously posted. So that's probably about it. Hopefully some more videos to come, especially for the Benz and just videos in general. So I appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you next time.